So hello, my name is Jonna Särs, and I am a Cloud Advisory Senior Manager at Accenture. I've been working with cloud for about 10 years now.
Good afternoon to all the participants. My name is Aarnikoivu, and I'm coming from the same team as Jonna, and we're focusing on the cloud transformation and migration projects.
So really happy to be here today to talk to you about cloud. In Lassi's presentation, you learned about the cloud basics, but we want to go a little bit deeper and talk to you about how you can make a difference working with the cloud, and also a little bit more about what is included in working with the cloud and what kind of skills you need. So let's dive right in. Cloud is a game changer. Oh. Sorry for that. Cloud is a game changer. So already before the pandemic hit, the leaders in cloud adoption were having over twice the average revenue growth compared to the companies that were lagging behind in cloud adoption. And 95%, so almost all of the leaders, consider cloud as a catalyst for innovation rather than just a different kind of infrastructure. So this year, when the pandemic hit, almost overnight, the performance gap between the leaders and the laggards, it just widened. And for the leaders who had already been investing in the cloud, it was easier to adapt to the pandemic. They had less fixed IT costs, so they were able to cut costs faster. And it was also easier for them to adapt quickly to remote working, and also where remote working was not an option, to set up other kinds of safety measures. And the laggards were just left scrambling to catch up. And organizations are now really accelerating their digital transformation towards the cloud to really navigate this human and business impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Cloud allows companies to harvest a number of significant benefits, which fall roughly into two categories. The first is business enablement. Cloud enables speed to market and agility. And so, for example, compared to the traditional way of building up and setting up servers in a corporate data center, in cloud, you can provision your infrastructure in minutes rather than weeks or even months. And in a fast-moving business, that makes a huge difference. Also, in cloud, you don't need to predict the maximum capacity that you need and size the environment to match that up front, because you can easily scale your systems up and down as you need. Cloud also provides innovation and new business capabilities. So, for example, big data, advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and so forth. And these are really enabling a deeper customer intimacy and also tapping into new revenue streams. The other category is IT efficiency, and there cost savings is a key value driver. The hyperscalers, or the AWS and Azure and Google and so forth, they're investing at an incredible pace, and it's only accelerating. The top 7 hyperscalers are globally account for half of the hardware buying power, and the volume discounts that they get help bring the prices down. Also, in the cloud, since you can scale your environments to only match what you need, and you only pay for what you are using, that helps to also reduce the cost for you. And in addition, you only pay for the services as you go. You don't need like upfront heavy investment, which frees up the capital to be invested elsewhere in your business. And So with cloud, also you can improve your resilience and your business continuity, because it's easy to set up your applications and data in multiple locations or regions so that they can still be used even if there's an outage in one of the environments. Cloud also improves security. Security is actually one of the things that companies often cite as a reason why they can't go to the cloud. But I feel that that's just the fear of the unknown. I used to be a security consultant earlier in my career, and I would say that the cloud providers are being more thorough with their security practices than many other companies out there. They know that if they get caught for poor security, if they have poor security, that would drive away a lot of their clients, and they can't afford that. And finally, cloud enables a whole new level of automation. You can define your infrastructure as code in the cloud and automate all the repetitive, boring administration tasks so that you free up the time from the people working there for more maybe interesting things like development and continuous improvement. The cloud benefit that I'm personally most passionate about is sustainability. Migration to the public cloud could reduce the global CO2 emissions by 59 million tons per year globally, which is roughly the equivalent of taking about 22 million cars off the road. The cloud enables greater hardware utilization rates and more energy efficient infrastructures than what you get in a traditional kind of corporate data center. And this not only brings down the cost, but also reduces the emissions. For cloud providers, the energy is a big part of their cost, quite different than for sort of, let's say, other companies. And so for the cloud providers, they really have an incentive to reduce the energy usage as much as they can. So if you pick a low-carbon cloud provider like Google or Azure, you can reduce your carbon emissions significantly just by moving to infrastructure as a service. And if you're willing to increase your ambition level even further and establish practices such as sustainable software development and cloud-native solutions, then you can reduce your footprint even further. Cloud is ready for fully committed enterprise-wide adoption. And most organizations already have at least one application in the cloud. The leaders are adopting an all-in cloud strategy. But for most organizations, they're closer to 20% than 80%. And they still have a long way to go to be able to leverage the huge investments that the hyperscalers are doing. However, it should also be noted that almost 2/3 of the organizations are saying that they haven't been able to fully realize the expected benefits from their cloud. And indeed, they don't come automatically. You need to have the right skills and know what you're doing and take the time to do it properly to be able to realize the benefits. So let's take cost, for example. Because it's so easy to spin up new servers and grow your data in the cloud, if you're not careful, you could actually end up spending more money in the cloud rather than spending less. You really need to keep managing and optimizing your environment to realize the savings. For example, you should be shutting down the services that you're not using. You should be utilizing reservations where your capacity needs are stable and predictable for a year or more. You should be choosing the right storage tier for your data based on the actual performance needs, and not just sort of thinking that I'll take the best. And also archiving the data that you don't need that often. You should be continuously optimizing your instance types and choosing the services that are sort of providing most value cost efficiently. And also you should be moving towards cloud native solutions for cost efficiency and also for sustainability. So just like with cost, also for the other benefits, you really need to have the right skills to get that. So the day-to-day of what it's like and what you do with when you're working with cloud, it could be quite different based on what you're specializing in, and also the situation of your organization or your client if you're a consultant like we are. So here in the slide, you see a spectrum of Accenture's cloud services, for example. You could be working with cloud transformation, starting with cloud strategy, assessing cloud business cases, defining the vision for the cloud usage and how that benefits the business, thinking about which or solution and which cloud provider to choose, and also how to manage the change. Then you could be working with cloud migrations, moving applications and data from on-premises to the cloud, or from one cloud solution to another, if you're restructuring or moving towards more advanced and cloud-native solutions. Or you could be working with cloud engineering, for example, DevSecOps, being part of a small autonomous and multi-functional team, which is developing and maintaining an application as well as the environments that it's running on in the cloud. Or you could focus on a cloud platform, for example, databases on Oracle Cloud, or ServiceNow, which is a tool for managing IT services and enterprise workflows. On the infrastructure side, you could be a cloud architect, or you could be administering the different technologies such as hybrid cloud or network or digital workplace. Or you could be specializing in cloud security, protecting your organization from security breaches. And I guess with the recent Vastaamo case, it's good also to mention that it's important to also protect the data of your customers. And also a different kind of way would be to work with developing and deploying cloud-based industry solutions, for example, in the financial sector. And for all of these, you could be working on one of the cloud providers, or you could be working on two or more. And multi-cloud is actually quite common these days. All of these different kind of roles are based on the same foundation skills. But then, of course, each of them also has their own special knowledge. So next, Anna is going to talk about an example of a cloud migration and optimization project.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonna. So let's discuss one of the projects that we have recently completed for a multinational client, which focused on migration and cost optimization activities post-migration. This project has been part of a larger scale transformation program targeted at modernizing the IT infrastructure of the client and across different domains ranging from networking to security, workplace, data center and cloud, service management. And the objective was to lay out the solid foundation to embrace all the opportunities that the cloud is providing. The objective of the project that we have been working on specifically within the migration area was to transition the applications from several on-premise data centers to AWS in this particular case. Of course, we also work with the other cloud providers, as Jonna mentioned earlier. The scope of the project included more than 400 application and infrastructure services servers, as well as more than 500 terabytes of data. And we have also used a combination of different migration approaches, lift and shift, replatforming the applications, and even rebuilding applications natively in the cloud. Let's take a look at the phases and structure of the project. So the first plan and build phase was focused mainly on defining the migration scope, performing assessment of the applications and services that would be migrated, as well as in parallel preparing the design of the cloud architecture and implementing the cloud so-called landing zone that will host the migrated applications. Next, once the environment was ready, execution of the actual migration activities was initiated. And during the migrate stage, also in parallel, migration team has been working with the cloud operations team to hand over migrated scope under the continuous operation services. And finally, during the last phase, the run and optimization activities were started after the applications and services were up and running in the cloud from a few weeks to a few months, depending on the use case. Let's now dive into the more details into each of the phases and discuss the skills and competencies that were required from the team to complete the project. And we will see that some of the roles are spanning across the different activities, while in some of the areas, the more specific specialization or skills or experience was required. So let's take a look at the plan and build phase. The plan and build phase starts with the assessment of the actual migration scope, which means that we need to understand what kind of applications, services, databases, infrastructure services the client has within the migration scope, and how these services and applications will be or can be migrated to the cloud. This is quite an important phase because it impacts the further ongoing migration activities and required effort. So for example, in case of this particular project, it was concluded as a result of the assessment that some of the applications should not be even at all migrated to the cloud because they would be soon decommissioned. And for some of the applications, it actually made more sense to rebuild them natively in the cloud because according to the application roadmap, they were supposed to be upgraded shortly. In parallel to confirming the migration scope, migration team also has worked with the cloud architecture team to define the application placement within the cloud environment. For instance, some of the applications were internet-facing, and thus they had to be isolated in a separate virtual private cloud or subnet. And in other cases, applications fell under the shared services domain, which means that they had to be accessed by all the other applications that would be migrated, and a result of that also required specific security and networking configuration. Overall, the outcome of the migration of the plan and build phase is the clearly defined migration scope, as well as the detailed migration plan, the cloud environment, which is tested both from the technical perspective as well as through the pilot migrations, and is ready to host the production-grade business applications. If we talk about the skills that were important at this phase, of course, since most of the activities have been focusing around migration planning and execution, as well as cloud architecture and implementation and design, these were the skills that were important, especially understanding assessment methodologies, so what kind of data needs to be collected for the applications, and what kind of technical requirements need to be delivered to the architecture team in order to build a secure, robust cloud landing zone, which also would fit all the use cases. Once the environment is ready, the execution of the migration activities starts. And in this case, since the scope of the project was quite large, applications have been grouped into the different migration waves. That gave the team a possibility to also somewhat reflect on the experiences within the past migrations and incorporate these lessons learned into the future waves. And if we talk about the skills, technical project management was especially important in this stage. Because of the large scope of the project, besides the main project manager, the team also had dedicated technical coordinators that were assigned to a specific migration scope according to the client's business units. And these coordinators have been working as the liaisons between the application stakeholder team as well as the technical migration team. And their main responsibility was to prepare applications for the successful migration. For example, capture application interface data, firewall rules, prepare minute-by-minute migration plan, define the initial sizing of the resources in the cloud, and execute the actual cutover activities. And by cutover, we imply here when the application in the original source environment is offline and restarted once migrated to the new cloud environment. Overall, as we can see, delivery of such complex and large-scale projects, it's always a teamwork. And it does require different roles, different profiles, from project management and communication skill sets to hands-on cloud administration, experience, and even to service management to define and ensure that all the operational processes like monitoring, backup schedules, patching schedules are configured correctly once the migration is completed. After the applications have been, depending on the use case, like we discussed earlier, some time running up in the cloud, the cost optimization activities can be initiated. For me personally, this probably is one of the most exciting parts of the project because it truly demonstrates the flexibility of the cloud. As the first step, the team has defined the cost heat map. So we have analyzed all the resources that are used for this particular client within AWS and created the list of the key cost-driving areas. In this example, these were the Windows and Linux instance costs, as well as the elastic block storage costs. Of course, other areas also generated costs, but they were comparatively small. And based on these findings, the team has defined three main areas for the cost optimization. So the first one was focusing mainly on the downsizing of the instances and the block storage volumes based on the utilization data. So we have collected data on the CPU, memory, IOPS, utilization levels for servers, and percentage utilization for the EBS block storage. And based on these insights, have recommended the new, more optimal size of the environments. Also, in some of the cases, we have recommended a more latest, an upgraded instance type, which was not available during the time of the migration. And this is an interesting observation because this truly shows how quickly the innovation is being done in the cloud, as Jonna pointed out earlier. The second cost optimization activity has been related to scheduling the workloads, shutting down the servers, for example, for non-production applications outside of the business hours, like during the night or during the weekends. And again, the potential of these activities is quite high because if the resource is kept offline for 50% of the time, organizations can immediately reduce the costs for these resources by 50%. So definitely an area that is worth investigating. And finally, the last area was related to working together with the client to define the capacity reservation, capacity commitment plans. In the context of the AWS, these were the reservations and the savings plans later on. Overall, these activities did yield a significant cost reduction for the client of more than 20% of the annual AWS run costs. But of course, there are many more levers that have been investigated and that can also be in future implemented for this environment as well. If we talk about the key skills, probably this can be summarized to the ability to leverage the best practices for architecting environments in the cloud for cost efficiency and flexibility. In general, cloud economics is a very interesting area, and it also becomes increasingly important as more and more companies are moving to the cloud, and they do need to implement more efficient, continuous cost management and cost optimization practices. overall, if we talk about the skills across all of the 3 phases in the project, once again, we can see that there are many different profiles and many skills that are available within the cloud domain. And one can specialize either in some particular skill or develop expertise across different domains. It all really depends on one's professional interests and career aspirations. As we heard earlier in Jonna's part, that the impact of the cloud towards the businesses is really substantial. Many of the companies are still actually in the beginning of their cloud journeys. So it is a really good momentum to become a cloud professional and help these companies transform themselves and embrace the future. So this concludes an overview of the project. Now back to Jonna for a few closing words.
Yeah, so as you heard from Anna, there are both technical and non-technical roles working with the cloud. And there are, of course, also many different types of roles. But I would also say that the roles of people working with cloud tend to evolve over time. So you might start with doing administration and then move further into being an architect or becoming a project manager, or even getting towards other kind of roles such as sales. Or you might go the other way and start from a more sort of non-technical role, like being a project manager or so forth, and then kind of going from there, more expanding your skills towards more technical roles. And you really can evolve over time and build it further. So when you're considering to start a career in the cloud, it's really a good idea to talk with somebody who's already doing the kind of work that you were thinking about, because then it allows you to get a much better picture of what the work is really like, and help you figure out sort of a little bit in advance that does that sound like something you would enjoy. And then maybe if that was not quite the thing, then as you've seen, there's a number of different things. So you could adjust the course a little bit and move towards something a little bit different, which would maybe be a better match for your strengths and interests. So apart from that, I would say that while it's not mandatory to have a certification when you're working with the cloud, it does help to demonstrate that you have the right skills. Of course, an education is also a good way to demonstrate skills if you have graduated and been learning about these things in the school. But you don't have to have a degree in the cloud to be able to demonstrate that you know what you're doing. So certification is another way of doing that. We at Accenture, we actually believe that cloud skills are so fundamental and so important to everybody that we have a company-wide skills building and certification initiative where we're asking everybody to learn at least basic cloud skills and get certified to their level of competence. So if you would like to get cloud certified, you could start by looking at the pages of the different cloud providers. They have their certifications listed there and also related training. And some of the ones also, I mean, the training, for example, is often for free. And even the certifications themselves, they don't cost that much. And so then once you've taken a look what's available, what kind of different things there are, then you could pick the ones that suit you best, or the one or more of them that suits best for your interests, as well as your whether it's like entry level or something more advanced. But I would say the most important thing is to start doing it and learn by doing. I mean, the kind of things that Anna was mentioning, you don't learn those things from books. You have to actually be part of a team, first as a junior member and see and learn what everybody else is doing, and they more senior people are mentoring you, and then you basically sort of grow your skills from there. And cloud is so dynamic that it's always developing, and you really need to be willing to always keep learning. So with that, we would like to thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
And hope to see you at the virtual booth. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.